Hey everybody, hope you're doing great today. This is Paul from This Way the Aquarium, and today I want to talk about the topic of nitrates in your aquarium. So one of the byproducts of the nitrogen cycle that happens in the aquarium, there's ammonia that's excreted by fish. As living material breaks down, it's converted to ammonia. So as that ammonia builds up, it can quickly become very toxic to fish and other inhabitants of your tank. So we need to take care of that, make sure that the ammonia is processed, turned into nitrite, and then that nitrite is turned into nitrate. So nitrates at a lower level is also not very harmful, but as the nitrates start to get high, you could run into issues. Some fish don't tolerate that well. It can cause other problems. So in this video, I want to look at different ways that you can use to keep your nitrates down. So depending on what you want to do, you could use any of these tips, any or all of these tips, in order to reduce the nitrates in your tank and keep everything running smoothly. So let's take a look at the first method that probably a lot of fish keepers use in order to keep the nitrates down in their aquariums. So the simple water change is one of the ways to help reduce nitrates. So basically what you're doing is you are taking water out of your tank that's got higher nitrates and then replacing it presumably with water that is lower nitrates. Usually most fish keepers are getting it from their tap. Now there are some fish keepers who run into the issue of high nitrates from their water supply, and that's a different story, and that requires a different process for treating those nitrates in order to keep it down. Because if you're putting high nitrate water into your tank that already has high nitrates, you're not really getting much benefit out of that. While your aquarium might not like the high nitrate water, your outdoor plants definitely will enjoy that water. So rather than disposing that water down the drain, use it in your garden instead. By adding back in that dechlorinated tap water, we are reducing the amount of nitrates in the aquarium. Now for those who are in the situation where for whatever reason their tap water has high nitrates, whether it's coming out of a well or the local system for whatever reason has high nitrates, there are products that you can use to reduce the nitrate levels out of the water before you put it in your tank. So water changes are always good. It helps refresh the tank. Basically your fish are also using up minerals in there, and as you add more water in, that water is coming back in with more minerals as well. So let's take a look at the next idea for keeping your nitrates down in your aquarium. For this next suggestion, that is to use plants, live plants, living plants in your aquarium. So the more plants that you have, the more nitrates that do get taken up. Those plants enjoy the nitrates, they consume it, causes them to grow, and that helps reduce the nitrates within your aquarium. Now keep in mind though, if you've got dead leaves or dead parts of plants that are staying in the aquarium, so as those start to decay, that again puts ammonia as well as nitrate back into your aquarium. So you do kind of lose the benefit over there, depending on how much dead plant material you have. If you've got fast growing plants, they might be able to absorb everything, but you want to make sure you keep your tank clean and tidy as well to remove any dead leaves. Unless you have fish or shrimp in there, like in this tank, who like to consume those dead leaves, it's always best to take them out of the tank. So with keeping plants, your in-aquarium plants are great too. Some of them are slower growing, some of them are faster growing. It all depends. But another way to increase the nitrate consumption from these plants, especially if you've got fish who like to munch on your plants and you can't keep them in the aquarium, you can always keep plants outside of the aquarium. So this is a pothos sitting outside on the back edge over here. You might be able to see, so you can see the roots are coming in there. So the roots stay inside the tank. The plant itself, the leaves, stay outside. Now there's not a whole lot of great lighting for this tank, so it doesn't look that great, but it's still alive, it's thriving, and it's taking up nitrates out of this tank. So this tank has low nitrates, so that's something you can do with your tanks as well too, is use external plants to keep the nitrates down, especially where you have those fish you know are going to either dig up your plants, uproot your plants, eat your plants. By having them up at the top over there, you protect them. If you do have fish who will even eat the roots of your plants, getting something like this over here, which is basically a hang on the back of the tank over there. It's a box. I filled it up with sphagnum moss, and I've got a plant in there that the roots can grow at least in this planter box over here. They might extend down, so while the fish might eat some of the roots, the rest of the roots are protected in there and will keep the plant thriving. Another good way to reduce nitrates in your tank is to embrace algae. Now, this tank is an example of something taken to the extreme in terms of algae covering the front of the glass there. There's algae all over inside the tank, as you can kind of see over here. The reason for that, though, is this is a breeding tank. There's a pair of Julidochromos in here who breed. The fry, as well as the parents, do enjoy eating the algae, so I do not clean it. And I also don't want to spook the fish, so by having this little algae shield over here on the front, the parents feel a little more secure in their tank. The fry as well feel a little more secure. And I can get by with feeding them only one time a day. So the fry have this algae to munch on. As you can see, they've kind of scraped off some areas over here. But at the same time too, that algae sucks up a lot of nitrates. And so that's a great benefit, that maybe you don't want algae on the front of your tank, like these tanks over here, but allowing the algae to grow in different parts of the tank that don't obstruct your viewing pleasure can help reduce nitrates. So the other method to control and keep nitrates down is to not overstock your tank. So by overstocking, I mean having a whole lot of fish, either of smaller sizes like these guys over here, 3 to 4 inches. Right now this is a 40-gallon breeder. I've got 5 fish in here total, so definitely understocked. I do plan on adding some more, but not a whole lot. I really like to keep these tanks understocked, and as a result, with fewer fish, there's less waste. So similarly, if you have a tank, whatever size tank you have, and you have larger fish in there, so let's say larger than these, multiple larger fish, so that also can lead to excess waste creation. Overstocking in that sense, you're having a lot of larger fish in a tank, and they're producing a lot more waste. So that can also bump up your nitrates. So my recommendation is don't overstock in terms of the quantity of fish. Too many little fish quickly can overwhelm your tank, can start the nitrates getting out of control, or even having a number of larger fish as well can also cause issues, because larger fish produce more waste. That waste ultimately gets converted to nitrates. So this last and final tip that I have goes back to the old adage of you are what you eat. So in the case of your fish, similarly, if you're feeding low quality food, they're going to produce more waste. That waste will increase the nitrate load in your tank. So feeding high quality food and not necessarily overfeeding your tank. Sometimes the fish food instructions will say feed two or more times per day, as much as they'll eat within a 2 to 3 minute period, and clean out anything that hasn't been eaten. In the case of food that hasn't been eaten, that's been left there, that also does decay, ultimately becomes nitrite through the nitrogen cycle. So you want to get rid of that excess food. Similarly, if you've got fish who pretty much eat everything in sight, they devour everything up, and so you can put in there, they'll gobble it up within 2 to 3 minutes. With that though, you got to be careful that you're still not overfeeding. Yes, they can eat everything that you put in there 2 to 3 minutes. That doesn't mean they need that much food though. Some fish love to eat. You come in the room, they're looking at you eagerly and hungrily. You can dump in a large pinch of food in there and they'll happily gobble it up. But what ends up happening is then they produce a lot of waste that increases the biological load on your tank, means more nitrates in the end. So when it comes to me feeding my fish, I literally take just a small pinch, barely anything in there. And then just drop it in the tank. They're happily going to munch away. You can see some of the food starting to settle down there. They'll grab everything that's close to the top. And I only feed them once a day. Not more. Occasionally I'll feed them less, and that I'll skip one day during the week. And as you can see, they're still very healthy, very active, and always look like they're hungry. So avoid high nitrates by not overfeeding your fish. So there you have it. Those are my methods for keeping nitrates down in my aquariums. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you use any of these methods, or are there some other methods that you use? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.